The sun was dipping behind the tall palm trees of Umoka village, painting the evening sky with streaks of orange and red. The air smelled of roasted yam and wood smoke, the sound of distant goats bleating mixing with the chatter of children playing in the compound. Inside the small mud brick house, Nkechi Okafor, a widow in her early 30s, bent over the open fire. She turned slices of yam slowly, her wrapper tied firmly around her waist, sweat glistening on her dark skin. Behind her, laughter rang out like bells. It was her daughter, Chidima, only 10 years old, sitting cross-legged on the ground with a small chalkboard slate. She was sketching clumsy drawings of herself and her mother standing beneath a giant mango tree. "Mama, see us." Chidima's voice was full of joy as she lifted the slate. "You are holding my hand, and look, I wrote that you are the strongest mama in the whole wide world." Nkechi turned, her tired face breaking into a smile that only her daughter could bring. She walked over, leaned down, and kissed the girl's forehead gently. "Don't you forget it, NWAM," she whispered softly. "As long as I live, I will protect you." Chidima giggled, showing her little teeth. She hugged her mother tight, then dashed outside to skip around with the village children. Her laughter floated across the compound like music, echoing into the evening. But that laughter, that was the last time Nkechi would ever hear it. Later that night, everything changed. The villagers said Chidima had gone to fetch water by the stream before nightfall. They said she must have slipped on a wet stone and fallen, hitting her head. Some claimed they found her lying still by the water's edge. By the time they carried her home, her little body was cold. The news spread quickly: "Chidima is gone." Nkechi screamed until her voice broke. She clutched her daughter's body, rocking her gently as if she could wake her. But nothing happened. Her only child, the reason she lived, was gone. The burial was rushed. Too rushed. The elders insisted that a child must not stay unburied for long. A small white coffin was quickly made, lined with soft satin, too beautiful for such sorrow. As the coffin was placed in the center of the compound, neighbors and relatives gathered, wailing and singing funeral songs. The night was filled with grief, but as Nkechi leaned over her daughter's still face, her heart clenched. Something didn't feel right. She noticed faint bruises on Chidima's arms. She noticed the dirt beneath her fingernails, as if she had clawed at the earth with desperation. "Amora," she whispered to her younger sister who stood beside her, her eyes red with tears. "Why does she have dirt in her nails? Why are there bruises?" They said she slipped, but Amora held her hand tightly. "Nkechi, you are grieving. Let her rest. Accept it." But Nkechi couldn't. Her spirit was restless. Her daughter's death was not as simple as they claimed. That night, after everyone had left and silence fell upon the house, Nkechi sat alone beside the coffin. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered into the darkness, "If there is truth hiding inside here, I will find it. Even if it means following my daughter into her grave. I will not stop." The cock crowed at dawn, but Nkechi had not slept a wink. She sat all night beside the white coffin, staring at her daughter's face, listening to the silence that filled the room. Her heart felt heavy, yet her mind kept running. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the bruises. Every time she tried to pray, she remembered the dirt in Chidima's nails. Something deep inside her kept whispering, "This is not ordinary, this is not the truth." By morning, Nkechi tied her headscarf tightly, wrapped her black wrapper around her waist, and walked to the nearest market town. She entered a small electronics shop, her voice shaking as she spoke to the trader. "Bako, I need something. A small camera, the one that can hide." The man raised his eyebrow, surprised. "Madam, what do you want to use it for? This kind of thing is expensive." Her voice cracked. "Don't ask me questions. Just give it to me." He handed her a tiny camera that could fit into her palm. She paid with trembling hands and tucked it under her wrapper. When she got home, her younger sister Amara met her at the door. "Nkechi, where did you go? The mourners are coming later to sing again." "Let them sing," Nkechi muttered, her voice heavy. "I am not done with my daughter." That evening, when the mourners left and the compound became quiet, Nkechi slipped into the room where the coffin rested. Her hands shook as she opened the satin lining and carefully slid the camera inside, pointing it toward her daughter's small face. She was whispering a prayer when suddenly, "Nkechi!" She jumped, turning sharply. Amara stood at the doorway, eyes wide. "What are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" Nkechi's lips trembled. "I must know the truth, Amara. They said she slipped and fell, but how do you explain the bruises? How do you explain the mud in her nails?" "No, something happened, and I will not rest until I know." Amara stepped closer, her voice breaking. "But she is gone, sister. You are only hurting yourself." Nkechi turned, her eyes blazing with tears. "And if I am right? If she was hurt by someone? Should I close my mouth? Should I pretend nothing happened? God forbid. I will fight, even if I fight alone." That night, she set up her old laptop on the wooden table in her room. She connected the small camera and sat there, staring at the black screen. Hours passed. Nothing. Just darkness inside the coffin. She rubbed her tired eyes. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe her grief was playing tricks on her. But then, at exactly midnight, the screen flickered. Her heart raced. She leaned forward, almost unable to breathe. Something moved inside the coffin. A faint shadow brushed across the satin. And then came a sound. A soft, eerie scraping noise. Nkechi's hands began to tremble. She pulled her chair closer, eyes wide in terror. "What is that?" she whispered to herself. The scraping continued, followed by the faintest whisper of voices, muffled, distant, but real. And just before she could adjust the volume. Viewers, if this was your own child, and you saw shadows move in the coffin, what would you do? Would you look away, or would you keep watching, even if it broke your heart? Subscribe now so you don't miss what Nkechi discovers next, because what she saw that night will shock you to your bones. Nkechi pressed the headphones tightly against her ears, her whole body trembling. At first, she thought it was a trick of her imagination. Maybe the static of the camera was playing with her mind. But no. She was sure now. The whispers were real. She froze, her eyes wide as the faint voices filled her ears. Muffled, low, but steady. "Quick, they won't notice. Just cover it. Nobody will check." Her heart pounded against her chest. Her hands shook so much that she almost dropped the laptop. Tears filled her eyes as she leaned closer. The words came again, clearer this time. "Don't waste time. Just close it up. They will never know." Her lips quivered. "Chidima, oh my God, what did they do to you?" she whispered in horror. Nkechi's mind raced. Who were these voices? Who were these men speaking inside her daughter's coffin? She rewound the recording, pressing play again. The scraping sound returned, then the whispers, then a faint burst of laughter, cold and careless. Her blood ran cold. By morning, Nkechi rushed to the police station in Olu town. She tried to explain everything, the bruises, the dirt under her daughter's fingernails, and now the recording. But the officer at the desk barely looked at her. He shook his head slowly and sighed. "Madam, you are grieving. You need rest. Children fall and die every day. Please, don't disturb yourself with imaginations." Nkechi's voice rose in anger. "Are you blind? My child was not an accident. I have proof. I have voices inside her coffin." The officer frowned, his tone sharp. "Enough, madam. Go home and mourn your child, or you will disturb yourself into sickness. Nkechi stood there, stunned, her fist clenched, her tears spilling freely. Nobody wanted to listen. Nobody cared. As she walked back to her village, shame and fury burned inside her. She felt abandoned, mocked. That night, she sat again in front of the laptop. The shadows flickered inside the coffin. The whispers returned, louder now. Don't make it harder than it has to be. Just get it done. Nobody will check. Nkechi covered her mouth with her hand, a muffled scream escaping her lips. She wanted to smash the laptop, to stop hearing it. But she couldn't. Because deep inside, she knew one thing. Her daughter's death was not natural. Someone had done something, and they were hiding it. She grabbed her Bible and clutched it tightly against her chest. Chidima, I will not rest until I find the truth, she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Even if the whole world thinks I am mad, I will fight for you. And at that very moment, she heard something on the recording that made her blood freeze completely. A new voice. Deep. Calm. She was still breathing. Why didn't you finish it properly? Nkechi screamed. Nkechi could not sleep. The words haunted her ears, echoing again and again. She was still breathing. Why didn't you finish it properly? She lay awake on her raffia mat, her Bible clutched tightly to her chest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Chidima's face. Every time she tried to breathe, she heard the whispers. By morning, her body shook from exhaustion, but her mind was made up. She would not stay silent. If the police in Olu refused her, then she would find another way. Her sister Amara came into the room, carrying a bowl of hot pap. Nkechi, she said softly, her voice trembling. You are scaring me. You are not eating. You are not sleeping. What if all this is only in your head? Nkechi lifted her eyes, red and swollen from crying. Amara, I am not mad. I heard them. Men's voices. They spoke over my child's body. They said she was still breathing. Do you hear me? Still breathing. Amara dropped the bowl, her own eyes filling with tears. She knelt beside her sister and whispered, then what are we going to do? The police will not listen. Nkechi gripped her hand. Then we will find someone who will. Even if it is not the police, somebody must hear me. Somebody must see this video. That evening, Nkechi carried her small laptop into the house of their local priest, Father Okachukwu. He was a kind, aging man with gray hair and a voice that carried calm. When she explained, he frowned but agreed to watch. The small lamp in his sitting room cast long shadows as the recording began to play. First came the darkness inside the coffin. Then the scraping. Then the faint voices. Father Okachukwu leaned forward, his brow tightening. When the chilling sentence came, she was still breathing. Why didn't you finish it properly? He sat back in shock, crossing himself quickly. Chinik me, he whispered. This is evil. Nkechi's eyes widened. So you believe me, Father? He nodded slowly, his voice heavy. I believe you, my daughter. But you must be careful. Whoever is behind this, they will not want the truth to come out. His warning proved true sooner than expected. That night, as Nkechi returned home, she found something written on the dusty wall of her compound in red paint. Stop digging. Her legs went weak. She staggered back, clutching her chest. Amara rushed to her side, her face pale. Nkechi, who did this? Who came here? Nkechi's hands trembled, but her voice grew firm. They want me afraid. But I will not be afraid. If they think I will keep quiet, they don't know a mother's heart. She raised her face to the night sky, tears mixing with anger. For Chidima, I will not stop. Even if it costs me everything. And in that moment, the wind carried a sound across the compound. It was faint. It was soft. But to Nkechi's ears, it was unmistakable. The laugh of a child. The next morning, the whole compound was buzzing. Word had spread that something strange had been written on Nkechi's wall during the night. Neighbors gathered in twos and threes, whispering as they pointed at the bold red letters, "Stop digging." Some villagers shook their heads, saying, "Nkechi has offended the spirits. She should stop disturbing her child's soul." Others murmured that she was losing her mind with grief. But Nkechi stood firm. She ignored their whispers and carried her laptop in a raffia bag, heading toward Owerri town. She had made up her mind, if the police would not help, then maybe someone else would. At the town's bus park, she asked around for someone who knew about news reporters. Finally, one man led her to a small office near the market. Inside, the air smelled of old newspapers. A young woman sat at a desk, typing quickly on a laptop. Her braided hair was tied back, and her sharp eyes lifted as Nkechi entered. "Good afternoon, Ma," Nkechi said nervously. "I was told you are a journalist." The woman nodded. "Yes. I am Chimamanda Is, reporter for Eastern Voice newspaper. How can I help you?" Nkechi's voice shook as she explained everything: the sudden death of her daughter, the bruises, the dirt under her nails, the hidden camera in the coffin. At first, Chimamanda leaned back, her expression doubtful. But when Nkechi opened her raffia bag and set the laptop on the desk, everything changed. "Please, just watch," Nkechi whispered. The room grew silent as the video played. Chimamanda leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she listened to the whispers. "Quick, they won't notice. Just close it up. Nobody will check." And then, the chilling voice, she was still breathing. "Why didn't you finish it properly?" The young journalist froze. Her pen fell from her hand. "My God," she whispered. This is not ordinary." Nkechi's eyes filled with tears. "So you believe me?" Chimamanda nodded slowly, still staring at the laptop. "I believe you. But, Nene, this is dangerous. Whoever is behind this, they have power. They will not want this story to come out." Nkechi's voice grew strong, fueled by the fire in her chest. "I don't care. My daughter was not an accident. I will not let her die in silence." The journalist shut the laptop and looked Nkechi directly in the eyes. "Then we will expose them. But we must be wise. First, we need more evidence. This alone is not enough to break them. Do you understand?" Nkechi nodded, though fear churned in her stomach. As she left the office that evening, clutching her bag close, she felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since Chidima's death. Someone believed her now. Someone would help her fight. But as she walked through the crowded market, she felt eyes on her. A man in a black cap leaned against the wall, watching her every move. When she turned sharply, he disappeared into the crowd. Her heart pounded. She whispered under her breath, "Oh God, it has begun." That night, Nkechi could not shake the image of the man in the black cap from her mind. His piercing stare in the market had burned into her memory. When she reached home, Amora noticed her trembling hands. "What is it, sister? You look like you saw a ghost." Nkechi whispered, "Not a ghost. A man. He was following me. Watching me." Amora's eyes widened. "Nkechi, please, maybe it is time to stop. This is getting too dangerous." But Nkechi shook her head firmly. "If I stop, then Chidima's voice will be buried forever. I will not keep silent." The next day, journalist Chimamanda traveled to the village to meet Nkechi again. She wanted to see the coffin herself, to record fresh footage for her investigation. When she arrived, her small camera bag slung over her shoulder, some villagers gathered curiously. They whispered among themselves, "Who is this young woman? She looks like one of those city reporters. Why is she in Nkechi's compound? Chimamanda ignored them and entered the small mud brick house where the coffin lay. The air inside was heavy with silence. She set up her camera, her hands steady but her eyes cautious. This will help us, she told Nkechi. We need more than one angle. More proof. Nkechi nodded, though her stomach churned with dread. That night, both women sat together in the room, watching the feed on the laptop. Hours passed in silence. Crickets chirped outside. The lantern flickered low. At first, the coffin lay still. Only shadows moved across the satin lining. But then, just past midnight, the sound returned, the scraping, the faint shuffle, the whispers. Don't waste time. Just cover it. Faster. Nobody will check. Chimamanda's face paled. Her pen scribbled furiously in her notebook. This is enough to raise questions. Enough to shake people. Suddenly, a loud thud came from outside the window. Both women jumped to their feet, hearts pounding. The lantern swayed, casting trembling shadows across the wall. Who is there? Nkechi cried out, her voice shaking. No answer. They rushed outside, but the night was empty, only the rustle of palm trees in the wind. But on the ground, right at the doorway, lay a folded piece of paper weighed down by a stone. Chimamanda bent down, picked it up with trembling fingers, and unfolded it. Her eyes widened. The message was written in bold black letters. Last warning. Stop or you will join her. Nkechi's knees buckled. She almost fell, but Chimamanda held her arm tightly. The young journalist's face was pale, but her jaw tightened. Nkechi, they want us afraid. They want us silent. But this, she held up the paper, her voice shaking but firm, this only proves that we are close to the truth. Nkechi looked up at the night sky, her tears glowing in the moonlight. For Chidima, she whispered, I will not stop. But deep inside, fear gnawed at her. Whoever these people were, they were watching every move. And they were getting closer. The next day, Chimamanda returned to Owerri to prepare her first draft of the story. But she promised Nkechi that she would come back soon with stronger support. Be careful, she warned before leaving. These people are watching us. I will dig deeper from my end. Nkechi nodded, clutching her Bible close. But her heart was restless. The warning note still burned in her mind. Last warning. Stop or you will join her. That night, Nkechi sat on the veranda of her mud brick house, staring at the moon. The night air was heavy, but the compound was too quiet. Too empty. She felt as if unseen eyes were crawling across her skin. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps approached. She froze. A man stepped out of the shadows. He was thin, his clothes rough, his face marked with weariness. Nene, please, don't shout. I am not here to harm you. Nkechi's eyes narrowed. Who are you? Why are you here? The man glanced around nervously before whispering, My name is Obinna Nwosu. I used to work at the funeral home in Owerri where your daughter's body was prepared. Nkechi's breath caught. She tightened her grip on her Bible. What do you want from me? Obinna swallowed hard. His voice trembled. I came because I heard what happened. And I know what they are capable of. The voices you heard in the coffin. I know them. I know who they belong to. Nkechi's heart raced. Tell me, Baiko. Who are they? He shook his head, his eyes darting nervously to the dark trees around the compound. Not here. If they know I spoke to you, I am finished. Already, they chased me away. They said I saw too much. That is why I left the work. Tears welled in Nkechi's eyes. Please, Obinna, my daughter deserves the truth. If you know something, help me. Obinna hesitated, then whispered, Your child, she did not die the way they told you. She was still alive when they brought her to the mortuary. She was breathing faintly. But instead of saving her, they rushed to cover it. They said there was no time. They were hiding something. Nkechi gasped, clutching her chest. The words pierced her like a knife. My God, she was alive. Obinna looked at her with sorrow in his eyes. Yes. And those men, the ones you heard in the recording, they are still working there. They have done it before. You are not the first family. Her knees weakened. She nearly collapsed, but Obinna grabbed her arm to steady her. Listen to me, he said urgently. I will help you. But you must be careful. They are powerful, and they will silence anyone who talks too much. Even me. Just then, a dog barked in the distance. Obinna's head snapped up. His eyes widened in fear. They are close, he muttered. I must leave. But I will contact you again, if I survive. Before Nkechi could stop him, he vanished into the night. She stood there, trembling, the echo of his words heavy in her mind. Your child was still alive. For 3 nights after Obinna's visit, Nkechi could barely close her eyes. His words replayed in her mind over and over. Your child was still alive when they took her. Every time she tried to rest, her chest grew tight, and her tears soaked the pillow. But deep inside, her grief was slowly turning into fire. Amora begged her to stop. Nkechi, it is enough. We cannot fight these people. They are dangerous. But Nkechi shook her head. No, Amora. If we stop, then Chidima's voice dies with her. I cannot allow it. 2 days later, Chimamanda returned to the village. She brought with her a bigger camera, notebooks, and a determined look in her eyes. I did my digging, she told Nkechi as they sat in the compound. Obinna was right. That funeral home has had many complaints. Families whisper of bodies being mishandled, coffins reused, even deaths covered up. But nobody has ever had proof like you do. Nkechi leaned forward, whispering urgently, then we must act quickly. Before they silence us too. Chimamanda nodded. Tomorrow, I will take your story to my editor. But we need Obinna to speak on record. Without him, they will try to call this superstition. Nkechi's face tightened. I don't know if he will. He is already afraid. That night, the 2 women sat together again, watching the coffin footage. But before midnight, a sudden crash shook the compound. Glass shattered. The lantern fell, rolling across the floor. Smoke rose. Jesus! Amora screamed from the other room. Nkechi grabbed her Bible, her heart hammering. Chimamanda snatched her camera bag. Together, they rushed outside, only to freeze in horror. The white coffin that had been resting in the small house was now on fire. Flames rose high, licking at the night sky. The satin lining crackled, black smoke filling the air. Nkechi's scream pierced the night. No! She tried to run forward, but Chimamanda held her back. It's too late. The fire is too strong. Villagers came rushing with buckets of water, shouting, panicking. But the fire consumed everything. Within minutes, the coffin had collapsed into ashes. When the flames finally died down, all that was left was a pile of charred wood and smoke. The only proof Nkechi had of her daughter's death was gone. Nkechi fell to her knees in the dirt, wailing. They came for me, they came for her again. Chimamanda crouched beside her, tears in her own eyes. She whispered fiercely, Nkechi, listen to me. They think this fire will silence you. But it will not. We still have the recordings. We still have the voices. And we still have the truth. As the villagers murmured among themselves, one child tugged at her mother's wrapper and pointed to the trees. Mama, look, men were there. I saw them. 2 men, standing in the shadows. Then they ran when the fire started. The crowd gasped. All eyes turned toward the dark forest edge. But the men were gone. And Nkechi knew then, this fight had only just begun. The ashes of the coffin still smoldered in the corner of the compound when dawn broke over Umuoka village. Smoke rose into the pale sky, carrying with it the last piece of Chidima's little coffin. Nkechi sat on the ground, her wrapper stained with dirt, her face hollow from grief. Her neighbors whispered behind her, some pitying her, others shaking their heads in fear. But inside her heart, fire was burning hotter than ever. They had destroyed the coffin, but they had not destroyed the truth. Chimamanda knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Eneni, they think the fire will bury this story. But they are wrong. We still have your recordings. We still have Obinna. This fight is not over. Nkechi lifted her tear-streaked face. Then let the world hear. Let them all hear what they did to my child. That same week, Chimamanda carried the files, the recordings, and her notes to her editor in Owerri. The first article was published. Mother claims daughter was buried alive. Hidden camera footage sparks outrage. The story spread like wildfire. By evening, villagers gathered in small groups, reading the headlines aloud, gasping, muttering prayers. Many who had once doubted Nkechi now looked at her with sorrow and respect. Days later, Obinna finally returned. His face was gaunt, his voice low. But this time, he carried a sworn statement. I will testify, he said firmly, looking at Nkechi. They must be stopped. Too many families have suffered. The journalist filmed his confession. His trembling words spoke of bodies mishandled, coffins reused, and children silenced. His testimony gave weight to the whispers, and the story grew stronger. But the threats also grew. Strange phone calls came at night. Shadows lingered near the compound. Villagers warned Nkechi to leave, to let it go. Still, she refused. If I run, then Chidima's spirit will cry forever. I will not leave her voice buried. And then it happened. Under mounting pressure from the public, the government finally ordered an investigation into the funeral home. Officials came with papers, cameras, and police escorts. When they opened their books, they found the truth, falsified records, missing files, and complaints long ignored. The world was watching now. The men who had whispered over Chidima's body were named. Arrests were made. And though the fight was far from over, Nkechi felt a heavy weight lift from her chest. On the day of the hearing in Owerri, she stood outside the courthouse, clutching Chidima's last drawing, two stick figures holding hands beneath a mango tree. Her sister Amara stood beside her, Chimamanda on the other side. She raised the drawing to the sky and whispered through her tears, Chidima, my child, they tried to silence you. But your voice will never die. The world knows now. And the wind carried her words away, soft and gentle, as if a child's laughter floated once more across the sky. This story reminds us that a mother's love never dies. Nkechi refused to be silent, even when the world turned against her. And because she fought, the truth came to light. But this is not only her story, it is our story. It is a reminder that silence protects evil, and courage exposes it. If this story touched your heart, let us keep Chidima's memory alive together. Share this story. Speak against injustice. And never forget, one voice, even when trembling, can change the world.